The stock market continues to rally with memory leading the markets higher. Last week, we had major FOMC news along with the Iran peace deal. This week, we have major earnings with MU that is going to shake up the markets. So, welcome back to another weekly recap where we go over exactly what we're looking for coming into this week. With that being said, let's hop straight into my month to date P&L. Overall month has been absolutely fantastic. The markets have been giving us plenty of different opportunities every single day. And as you can see, I'm up over $70,000 this month so far, 62% trade win percentage. Profit factor 3.14, daily win percentage of 92%, along with an average win to loss ratio of 1.92. As you can see, another solid week in the markets, ending off with $22,000. Nearly perfect month so far with only one red day, which was Tuesday of last week. So it's been pretty solid. Expecting the price action to continue to be nice, of course, with markets rallying. We do have a lot of things to talk about coming into this week. So let's first take a look at the economic calendar. We did have FOMC last week with the new Fed chair. Besides that, this week, not really too much to talk about. We do have flash services PMI. That's going to be Tuesday at 9:45. On Thursday, we have the core PC price index along with the final GDP numbers, unemployment claims on Thursday as well. And then on Friday, we have the revised consumer sentiment. The main thing coming to this week, of course, is MU. This is severely going to impact the markets. Right now, you can see memory is leading the markets higher. S&P is a little bit weaker. The tech names are a little bit weaker, but the only things that are holding up the markets is specifically the semiconductors and more specifically the memory names, MU, WDC, names that are like SNDK. Those are the names that are holding up the market. So with, of course, MU reporting on Wednesday, we'll see how earnings shapes up the markets, especially with MU. This has been a name that's really been holding the market up drastically. So if MU pulls back, that can be a huge sign for a market pullback here as well. So we'll touch up on that a little bit more as the time comes. But with that being said, let's hop straight into the charts. Starting off with the major indices, as you can see here for the SPY, we've had a little bit more consolidation. The past couple of weeks, QQQ is a little bit more bullish, close back to that all-time highs level. But the name that is, of course, leading the markets higher is the semiconductor ETF, the SMH. So as you can see, the SMH is one of the only indices that are making a brand new all-time highs. QQQ failed to make a brand new all-time highs. SPY failing to make a brand new all-time highs here as well last week. So with that being said, let's start off on the SPY chart and let's talk about this from a weekly perspective. As you can see here on the weekly time frame, we're still very much bullish here above our previous all-time highs key level. The weekly chart, buyers stepped in right off that 9 EMA. And now you can see we're kind of consolidating in between this 730 along with this 760. Of course, if we do want to see continuation, break above 760, all-time highs for a push towards the upside. If you go into the daily chart, what we have marked out here is that 730, which we ended up having that overshoot, reclaim, push back towards the upside. Gap up over the weekend last week, only to be filled later into the week with, of course, the FOMC. But buyers basically stepped in off this gap fill, and now you can see we're kind of in between this range that we have, which is going to be that inside bar. So coming into next week, what we're going to keep an eye out for the SPY is really the 750 general area. Right now, we're kind of forming somewhat of a head and shoulders in the markets. But if we do want to continue towards the upside, back above this 750, we have room back up in towards that all-time highs. What we do have to understand here is that memory and the semiconductors are leading the markets higher. So that means really the Qs is going to have to make a brand new all-time highs first. And then of course the SMH is going to have to even continue higher in order for the SPY to hit our all-time highs. So key levels, we're going to keep an eye out on that 750. That's going to be key for the QQQ. We can keep an eye out on our previous all-time highs, which is going to be this 750. So as you can see, another gap up that we created, filled the gap, and we end up having some nice buyers stepping in. Now what we like to see is the break above 750 for continuation here on the QQQ. What we don't want to see is price come up, have a sharp rejection, and then we could potentially see a reversal back down into the bottom of the range, which would be that 700. So for the QQQ, Coming into this week, let's keep an eye out on our all-time high, 750. And then of course, with the SMH, this one is very much bullish. We end up gapping up above our all-time highs, filling the gap, but overall end up closing strong on the weekly time frame here. Of course, every dip so far is being bought up on that weekly time frame on the SMH. So we continue to rally towards the upside. Weekly chart is closing bullish. The location is at our all-time highs here as well. There's really no signs of slowing down here on the SMH. The main thing, of course, is going to be MU earnings, which is on Wednesday. The memory ETF, let's take a look at DRAM. I talked about this last week and a couple of weeks beforehand. This is a memory ETF. So if you don't want to invest in MU, SNDK, WDC, STX, you can look for the ETF. This one is very volatile, but this one is a little bit safer than the individual names in itself. DRAM, as you can see, making a brand new all-time highs last week. Really solid weekly candle back above our all-time highs. Really strong weekly candle close as well. Next levels on DRAM, if we were to draw Fibonacci's, is going to be, let's just draw this out really quickly. You can draw it out from this swing low to this swing high, 50% retracement down into that 61.8. Next level is going to be that 78.90s along with our 84. So those are the next major levels for the memory names. As you can see, we're just kind of continuing higher here in the after hours. But for DRAM, we like to see that extension all the way up into that negative 618. So that's going to be key for the memory names coming into next week. As for the futures charts, not really too much to talk about here on the future side. Basically, exact same game plan. We like to see the SPY or the ES in this case build up higher lows for a pushback towards the upside. What we don't want to see is kind of this head and shoulders being played out, which so far it is kind of rejecting off this 7,600. A reclaim back above will send this back up in towards that all-time highs. If we look at the NQ is bullish. We're back above this key area, which is our 30,000. You can see resistance turn into support, turn back into resistance, flipping back above. Now let's see if we can get that push back up in towards that all-time highs. So with that being said, let's go on to some of the tech names that we have coming into this week. Tesla, not really doing too much, kind of just consolidating here right at a key technical level, which is that 380. We bounced from here earlier into the year. Now we're kind of right back at this general area. So for Tesla, now we like to see this bounce play here off the 380. Longs in this case, best above 450. Let's talk about NVIDIA. NVIDIA here is one of the semis that have been lagging behind the overall markets. Key levels for NVIDIA is going to be that 210, a reclaim back above. Potentially we can see that move back towards the upside. If we reject off this area, we're just going to kind of range in between this 210 along with this 195. So let's keep an eye out on NVIDIA, the reclaim back above 210 coming into next week. AMD, another solid name that's continuing to push higher right now. We are building this kind of flat top or this cup and handle on this daily chart. So let's see if we can break above our 540, push towards the upside. So key levels that we have on AMD is going to be that 540. Right now, you can see this hourly kind of cup and handle forming, break above that 540, continuation towards the upside. Let's take a look at Apple. Apple last week, we talked about the previous all-time highs retest. So far, nice buyers are stepping in. We like to see it back above 300 if you want to see a pushback towards the upside. As for Google, nice buyers stepping in here as well. Reclaim back above that 370. Pushback towards the all-time highs is in play here. Microsoft showing weakness, Meta showing weakness, Amazon showing weakness, Netflix all the way back down at our 75. Netflix, a good area to look for a potential long is going to be this 70, right? Nice bounce play here off our 70 for a pushback towards the upside. As for SpaceX, a name that has been fairly volatile with its recent IPO. Key level on SpaceX is basically that opening range day that we have. Really solid buyers stepping in. If you miss that first initial push here on SpaceX, you can be looking for potential entry for a bounce play, short term, a bounce back towards the upside, offer 175. So with that being said, let's talk about some of the main watches that we had last week, along with the week previous. INTC, we talked about a leader being, talked about one of the names that's solid right off that 100 key psych. We had this daily flag pattern forming here as well. Nice break, retest, formed, this cup and handle here on the daily chart as well. My next targets here on on INTC 150, 140, and 150 are my next major levels. INTC looks really good for continuation. MRVL, talked about this one last week right off that 260. Let's see if we can get that continued push. Right now, you can see we did have a little bit of rejection off our all-time highs area. But now for for Marvel, we like to see the break above 320, continuation back towards the upside. MU, already talked about this name. This one looks good for continuation, of course. Key levels that we have marked out is that previous all-time highs with earnings coming up. Just maintain above our key levels for a push towards the upside. AMD, talked about that flat top break on this one, DRAM, and then other names that we talked about last week as well, some other memory names, WDC. Look at this solid push on WDC that we talked about. This nice bounce play, up 62% in the past 2 weeks on WDC. Other memory names, SNDK, nice push towards upside, strong candle close. So that's why memories are very strong, leading the markets higher. We have MU, WDC, SNDK, you have STX, you have a couple other ones here as well. ARM, nice bounce play right off our daily 20 for a push back up in towards our all-time highs. Now we like to see ARM maintain above that 420 for continuation. TSM, another one that I talked about, really nice strong candle close on the weekly time frame on Friday. Nice break above and nice strong candle close. I do expect now TSM next rally up and towards 500 is going to be key. So we'll keep an eye out on TSM. Key levels that we have marked out now is just going to be our 488, but we like to see now that push up in towards that 500, which is going to be key. So with that being said, coming into next week, we're just going to continue to focus on names with strength, at least the beginning of the week until Wednesday. That's when we have MU earnings. So the start of the following week, we're going to continue to look for upside on these semiconductors, of course, with a bunch of the names that I mentioned: INTC, MU, AMD, WDC, ARM, and then of course, once we do have MU earnings, that is going to be huge in the markets. So we'll be a little bit more patient beforehand. If we can look to capture some positions towards the upside for continuation, fantastic. If not, we're going to be a little bit more patient coming into Wednesday with, of course, MU earnings. And yeah, besides that, hope you guys enjoyed this weekly recap along with this weekly outlook. And with that being said, I'll see you guys all next week on Monday. All right, take care, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Peace.